Welcome to Windows on the World. I'm Mark Windows. We bring you cutting-edge news, empowering information, and no conspiracy theories. We are watching those, watching us, watching the people's voice. On today's show, we will be continuing our ongoing investigation into those enforcing and administering the law who do not know the basics of their own system. Our last show featured a story about an unlawful eviction. We will be following on from that today. We have stories on 2 more evictions where the police appeared to have a pre-arranged agreement with a third-party bailiff company. The lack of due process is apparent in all the cases we have covered. On the show today, we have Nasrin, Hez and Mo and Sherry from Deadbeat Dads, an organisation set up to counter the liabilities issued by the Child Support Agency, who were responsible for the taking of the property in this case. Here is the video we showed previously, which outlines the process.
So the initial hearing was in Stratford, and that was for £52,000, was it?
Yeah. And from there we went to the Edmonton County Court. The judgment was made against me. He basically said, you know, that's it.
Because I was actually there, and so was David Sheen, who was actually in the court. They wouldn't let me in, but the court was out of jurisdiction. The county court can only issue judgment up to £30,000, yet the order was for £52,000, and David Sheen objected to this because the judge asked if there was any reason the order should not be passed, and David Sheen had 3 reasons why the order should not be passed.
How could he make an order? You know, he didn't really look at it, did he? He was basically there.
It was a stamping process. You're saying that basically it's a rubber stamping process and the courts are administrative and they're working with the CSA?
Yes. I asked them to leave. I requested them to leave, get off the property, you're trespassing. They wouldn't have it. Then the police turned up. Then my brother was outside.
A lot of police turned up, didn't they?
There was. The neighbours were looking. Everyone was out there.
How many police turned up and tell us what happened?
There was over 10 police, and basically they were asking me to open the door and give them the house, and I refused to do it.
Because they're meant to be there merely to keep the peace.
They're not there to keep the peace. They are not there to keep the peace. Believe me, what I witnessed on that day, I'm absolutely convinced. And one of the policemen did tell me afterwards that he stated this: we don't work for the people, we work for the courts. I said to him, I thought you were here to protect us, but he said, we work for the courts, we don't work for the people. And I just couldn't believe it. I was in shock. The neighbours were in shock. They started smashing the door down.
With you behind it?
I was behind the door.
Because you actually called me after they were smashing the door down.
Yeah.
Charlie, that's it now, come out! Charlie!
So the place was shuttered up, and then it got put up for sale, didn't it?
Yeah, the estate agents on the high street was trying to flog it. They had the keys. They were instructed to flog it. There was a sign left on the actual perforated metal door that they boarded it up with, and it said on there that the mortgagee, well, the estate agent has taken possession of the property on behalf of the mortgagee. So now, looking at this sign, and we're saying to ourselves, now, what mortgage? There is no mortgage on this property.
The whole property was paid for, wasn't it? So,
yeah.
So there was no outstanding debt on it. So that's an interesting point in your case. So at the point we're at now is you took it upon yourself to go back into the house and take repossession of the house.
Well, yeah, when I found out the estate agents on the main high road given back the keys because they realised there's something dodgy here, they don't want to be a part of it, because I did say to them, everyone concerned is liable, because, you know, this is theft, and eventually there will be criminal proceedings, because people can't get away. No one's above the law. At the end of the day, no one is above the law, and when you break the law, you'll be brought to book. It's as simple as that.
There's not many people who have actually gone this far. This is why your case is interesting, because you never gave in. Some people have either committed suicide or they've just let their property be taken, but you've actually taken possession of the property. You've got back in, you took the shutters off, you're in the property, and now they've gone back to the court and you've been issued with another order, haven't you?
Yeah, that's what's happened. I took possession of the property. I went back in. It was, I'll tell you what, an experience, you know, to walk into your house, you know, home, walk into your home again and find broken glass everywhere, absolutely wrecked, things missing, stolen. You know, a watch my children bought me, still in the box it was when I left, gone.
And no one else had access to the property apart from the people who shuttered the premises up, the court bailiffs and the police. Is that right?
Well, I don't know who's taken these things, but it's nothing. You know, it's down to them at the end.
So
of the
the order says, the Child Support Agency, on behalf of the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, penal notice: if you or any other person in occupation of this address so served with this order do not obey paragraph 2 of this order, you shall be guilty of contempt of court and you may be sent to prison. Now, the judgment had no standing in the first place because of what we've said. So it says, paragraph 2, the defendant and any other occupants of the address do forthwith deliver up possession of the property to the claimant. And they're threatening you with prison now. So what are you going to do next?
Fight back.
Well, we showed that video just before Christmas, and that's just to remind the viewers of what's happening. These forced evictions are going on all over the country. We're going to be talking about that today, and we're going to try and find some solutions. We're going to see you after the break. Welcome back to Windows on the World. That video you just saw, we did show before Christmas, and it appears to show the police breaking down the door for a civil matter. We actually got a phone call into their press office, and first of all they said the police would never do that. However, they've been caught on video doing just that. The second time we called, they said if the police did that, it would be criminal damage. So you've just witnessed criminal damage by the police. Our next guests are Maurice and Sherry Barnett, who set up the Deadbeat Dads website when they were targeted by the CSA. They have helped people through the administrative court process and continue to do so. Mo and Sherry, welcome to Windows on the World.
Thank you, Mark.
Hello.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah.
So, did you have a good drive in today?
Yeah, absolutely. Straight all the way from Lancashire into London. Yeah. No problem, straight here.
Fantastic. Yeah. So, just tell us a bit about how Deadbeat Dads was set up.
We set it up basically when the Child Support Agency contacted me initially under the guise of the Department for Work and Pensions. They wanted to know something about child tax credits, which I knew nothing about. So I don't have sort of anything to do with child tax credits. And then they sort of said, well, we're actually from the Child Support Agency. And I said, right, well, I'm not discussing anything over the phone because you could be anybody. Put the phone down, and the next thing I knew, I have a deduction from earnings order on my wages. So they've gone straight to my employer sort of give them all the details and start taking funds. So we sort of start looking into the Child Support Act, and there was so many sort of contradictions in the Child Support Act. We thought something isn't right here. I tried going through what I didn't know then was the administrative court at the time, and even at the time the magistrates turned around and said to the CSA, you should have explained who you were right from the beginning, not hiding under the guise of somebody else. And even the CSA themselves, well, this court presenting officer who went in, admitted that they'd done wrong. But they still try to justify the Child Support Act by carrying on taking funds out of my income. We then decided something isn't right, and we thought, well, we can't sort of just fight it on our own. So we decided to set up what was initially a support group for fathers. So Sherry decided to do all the research and everything, and it was amazing the stuff she was starting to find out. So we set up Deadbeat Dad Association, and straight away we were sort of inundated with emails and sort of stories from fathers. And then from then we thought, right, well, we can't just sort of say, well, we're just here as an association, not do anything. So we decided to research the correct laws. People were coming to us with information they knew, but they only knew it to a certain extent, and so what we decided to do was take that extent a little bit further. So what we did was we decided to research what we knew up to a certain point and then research beyond. And it was only, I think, in the past sort of two and a half years, wasn't it?
2 years.
We sort of had the solution where you shouldn't be going into court and speaking everything should be on paper.
That's a really important point, isn't it, Mo?
Yeah,
because obviously anything legal has to be in form, which is on paper.
Correct. I mean, they don't verbally tell you they made an order. It's all on paper. And there's nothing in law to say you have to agree with what a judge states. Because at the end of the day, the judge is working for you. And the same with the police, the same with the Secretary of State and the government. They are working for us.
They're meant to be public servants, right?
They're meant to be public servants, yeah, but what they're doing now is they slowly, gradually change things into their private world. And they sort of, they put all this propaganda out, and people are starting to believe their propaganda. When you start bringing it back into the public, that's when they don't like it. We've had so many success stories helping people in court. Obviously, we can't attend every court case, but what I do is I sit people down either on Skype or on the telephone, and I'll say, this is what they say to you when you go into court, this is what they do, this is what you need to come back with. And we've seen so many corrupt judges and corrupt solicitors operating in court. And we had a meeting with one guy who we stopped the CSA taking his house. And we met him on Christmas Eve, and he turned and said, listen, the information you gave me was fantastic. He said, because when he went in there, he says, very little I had to say. And he says, the minute I appointed the solicitor as the trustee, she burst into tears. She didn't want to know. But the judge, he admitted he hadn't read the paperwork. Well, sorry, it's not our fault you can't do your job. It's all there on the record. If you can't do your duty, get another judge in who knows the law, knows his job. He didn't even read the paperwork. He says, I'm still granting the order. I'm putting the thing immediately on the land registry, on the title. So as soon as he got the order, we just voided the order. And when we set the void order in, they tried bringing it.
That's just to, sorry to interrupt you there, Mo, but can you just explain to people what the void court order is? We have actually covered this on previous shows.
Yeah.
But for people out there who maybe didn't see that.
Yeah, a void court order is any court that acts outside of its jurisdiction. That's it. The order is null and void. They cannot dismiss it. They don't have jurisdiction to dismiss it. What they can do is they can start a case again from scratch. Right? But if they want to start again from scratch, well, what you can do is say, right, well, let's take this into equity. If, like, for example, the child support agency, they say a debt is owing, we keep saying to them, show me the debt. Show me where you paid out the money. Show me where you are the claimant.
It's all an assumption, isn't it?
It's all an assumption, but how they get around it is they take it into an administrative court. No, you keep that administrative court and into a public court. And that's it. They have to adhere to their public oath of office. And, we thought, well, I researched it. I mean, it took me 3 months. I listened to one gentleman. I sat down and listened to his recordings. I did the transcript. I typed everything up, so everything sort of went in here. And I knew it all sort of paraphrased, and everything sort of started to fall into place. And one of our members come to us. He had a problem with the CSA. This was another order where they wanted to sort of take his house off him. We thought, right, we'll put this plan into action. And we did. And we thought, it's working. Fantastic. It is working. Once you put the void order or the writ of error in, that's it. The order's void.
Because they're acting purely administratively.
Yes, yeah.
So once you interrupt that with the law, they don't really know what to do. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And they're operating as an administrative court the minute they start asking for a fee. No, it's not just if the CSA take you into court. If you want to bring a claim against them and they ask you for a fee, you say, well, no, actually, the court, you are public funded. I'm already paid. I've already paid for you. If I bring my pay slip in, I'll show you the tax I paid. You people already paid for. So what are you telling me? You are actually putting funds before justice. Yeah. So what they're doing is they're delaying your justice, and as we know, justice delayed is justice.
And what happens? Do they cancel the fees then?
Yeah, they have to. Yeah. I mean, I had a personal case myself. I put a thing in. They tried denying receiving the paperwork. When I said it's been recorded delivery, they had to back down. Then they asked for a fee, and I said, right, are you confirming you're operating privately? Because you want to put funds before justice. Well, no, that doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that's very interesting because a lot of people think that they have to use all the court procedures that they're enforcing on us.
Yes.
And in actual fact, in law, you don't.
Well, no, because at the end of the day, you don't know the full laws. Because where do you have to go to find out what your rights are? A solicitor. A solicitor is a private practitioner. He's governed by the private law society, so they're all private. Yeah. So if you don't realise you've done something wrong until it's actually happened, and the courts are profiteering from it, well, it's legalised fraud.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if anyone wants to phone in, if you've got problems dealing with debt collectors, the CSA, or they're threatening to repossess your house, or you've had your house repossessed, and you want to try and find a remedy, it's 0203 714 2700. That's 0203 714 2700. So as you were saying, Mo, the Deadbeat Dads actually, it describes itself as an independent watchdog of the CSA.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean,
because if you, sorry to interrupt, but there are various stakeholders of the CSA, which through research we found out, and it's the case, we did actually get within your data prints an internal email that was sent around the various offices, which actually said, can we not steer this group towards the stakeholders and control them? So, and they wanted us to become stakeholders, and we just said, I don't think so. Because once you're stakeholders, you do as you're told. It's as simple as that. And we just said, well, we're not going to do that. It's just not going to happen. You know, we research, well, I did the bulk of the research at the beginning for the first 3 years. And it was a case of I was doing a university course, counselling and psychology, and then I suddenly decided, well, why don't we set up a support group? And it flew from there. The other thing to touch back on as well with the court fees is ask yourselves why certain groups of people the courts will say don't have to pay a fee because they're in receipt of state benefit. Where does state benefit come from? So the argument there is that's why they're not going to have to pay a fee. Yeah. But if you look at some people's, like for instance his tax bill, my God, it's a chocker, could feed a family of 4 for a fortnight. You know, so it's a case of when you sit down and you do think of these things in a certain way, you think, oh God, yeah, that actually makes sense. If you look at things in a sort of common sense sort of way, you think,
I think that's the main point, isn't it? That these things, the solution is quite simple and it is there. What people tend to do is get thrown into panic
and complicate things.
The fear kicks in. Now, we've got here, this is a warrant for your immediate arrest for non-payment of a fine. And it says it's on HMCS court paper. Okay? And it says, I have a warrant in my possession for your immediate arrest. Well, surely that shouldn't be written on the bit of paper.
No, exactly.
That's wrong to start, isn't it?
Yeah, that was how it was posted through his letterbox.
No envelope.
But we don't know who had a warrant, did we? Because that's surely something that someone turns up and says, I have a warrant in my possession for your immediate arrest. You don't post that through the door, do you?
No envelope.
There's something else wrong with this, isn't there, Mo?
Yeah. It's got on for a non-payment of court fine. This is in a magistrate's court, £36,417.56. Well, a magistrate can only fine you a maximum of £5,000.
Unless it's tax
so
or
it's out of
VAT.
jurisdiction.
Exactly. And then when we phoned the courts up, we said, well, who's giving you all authority to exceed your own jurisdiction? They said, well, it's handwritten maintenance default in the top. So they're fraudulently doctoring government documents for the procurement of funds under fraudulent pretenses.
Can you tell us how you found out about that?
When our member contacted us, he was panicking because he got that come through the letterboxes. Scanned it in, let's have a look at it. And when we had a look at it, we thought, it's a bogus document.
We picked it to pieces, more or less, didn't we?
Bearing in mind they'd already served 3 bogus liability orders where the courts actually admitted they'd withdrawn one and dismissed one. Right? And the other one was done under criminal proceedings, so we issued the statutory declaration. And then he received that. So I said, just ring the courts up and just ask them who's given them authority to exceed their £5,000 limit, right? And when they turn and say, well, it's handwritten maintenance default in the top, well, just say, are you confirming you're fraudulently altering government documents for the procurement of funds? He said the phone went down. They hung up on him.
Yes, but there was another anomaly here, wasn't there? In the HMCS became HMCTS, right?
Yes, it came.
So they actually got that wrong as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But all it was just a CSA minion who just posted through his letterbox to make it look.
Because there are certain courts around the country that actually have a little office where CSA staff actually sit within the court building and dole out whatever they want to.
Well, this is very important that people know this, that there's a private part of the courts.
Yes, it is, yes.
And one thing we found out was sometimes those private parts of the courts are using a different postcode to the main building.
Yes.
Have you come across that?
Yes. But they use like a PO box number, don't they?
Yeah, but the postcode is totally different.
Yes.
We started looking up these courts, like Thames Magistrates Court, for instance, in Bow, and they've actually got a different postcode from everything around them, totally different, and there's a different postcode within that building for another court. I think the youth court's got a different.
The best one is when you get a summons from the CSA to attend a court, and you try to do a response, and Google Maps is brilliant. Go on Google Maps, look at the address that's got to be on the document somewhere, and I think is it 3 at the moment that are actually post office venues.
Yeah, the one at Crewe,
sorting offices.
2 Western Road in Crewe is actually the Royal Mail sorting office.
So if you want to go down and argue, if you want to go down and argue your case and get a CSA staff member through the window, you can't.
Because they've got a warrant for my arrest.
Yeah.
Have you got my parcel as well?
Yeah, exactly. That's just it. That's it. I mean, if it wasn't so funny, to be tragic.
Well, yeah, I mean, but what you've done is brought a bit of light into the situation because, I mean, people were killing themselves, weren't they? Committing suicide, or you know, there's many suicides, wasn't there?
Yes, there was. I mean,
documented. I think it's 94, but there are far more than that. And they still actually do go on. They still actually do go on. We've had in the 6 years we've been up and running, we've had at least 3 where they've said they've contemplated suicide, and they've been in the throes of it at that time. So my counselling course that I managed to pass did actually come in handy, and we just basically all we do is we just talk them around and we say, look, you know, at the end of the day, do you honestly think it's worth giving your life up for some idiot sat
some
behind a desk? Exactly, sat
made
behind
a
a
wrong
desk.
decision. Who's
and,
in error.
And they suddenly look and think, oh gosh, actually, you're right. And I'll say, no one's life is worth that.
I mean,
certainly not.
David Sheen mentioned before, you know, we actually have the documents, the uncorrected evidence, where Noel Shanahan admitted interim assessments were actually 300% inflated. You know,
absolutely.
we've got the document here.
We covered that on the previous show.
Yes, we did. You know,
I mean, interim assessments are originally only supposed to last for 3 months, by the way.
Sorry, say that again, Sherry.
Interim assessments are only supposed to last for 3 months, so it gives the CSA staff member, the caseworker, 3 months to be able to establish what the person's income, the father's income is, and get it hard-nailed, and that's it. And we've had fathers come to us who've stated, well, I've been on the same assessment, so it's the same interim assessment for 13 years, 14 years, 15 years. So if that's a 3-month assessment going on 13, 14, 15 years, that's diabolical. And this is, you know, staff members who are public servants, and they can't push a button, they can't get a pencil and paper and do something right. And it's just, you know, and
there's an army of these administrators, though, and there's going to be more and more. They say they're cutting them down, but I don't believe it.
No.
You know.
I mean, going back to the video earlier on, I mean, even Noel Shanahan admits, you know, regarding taking people's homes, and he admits in his statement, hey, we've looked at this now, the mere threat of selling a house means we've had some very big cases where people have suddenly written cheques for £50,000 and £60,000. It's used as a deterrent. This is the most effective thing. We have a range of powers that help us to do that now. So we've seen the powers where...
Well, it's not deterrent, is it? It's just blackmail.
Exactly. You know, and they're using the police as some sort of private army.
But the thing to also remember in all of this is fathers who have paid and are paying, and 9 times out of 10 it's just because they are not paying through their system, because they choose to do it themselves. Prior to 2010, 9 times out of 10 it's because the parent with care, the mother, was on a former state benefit, and any maintenance the father paid was taken into account. So he's, say £200 a week he got to pay child maintenance, and she was receiving, I don't know, £100 a week in state benefit. £100 of his wage would automatically pay her state benefit bill. And then she would receive the other £100, but then she'd have bits taken off for council tax, rent and other things. So she may only receive £25 a week towards 1 or 2 or 3 children. So who can justify that? So what the fathers were initially doing was saying, well, if that's the case, I'm paying you direct, there's a £200. But unbeknown to the fathers, their cases were rumbling on and on and on with the CSA, and we get a lot of this. Fathers coming to us saying, hence the figures, 36,000.
So they think they've settled the matter.
Exactly, and they haven't. Since 2010, it's not as bad because none of that now is taken into account. Any mother on state benefit now gets the whole maintenance amount. Which is, it coincides with CMEC, the Quango being kicked to the curb, and a lot of other changes that we've seen coming in.
What we strongly advise people to do, if they get anything from the CSA saying you owe X number of pounds, you want to see a copy of their public accounts to show where they paid it out. Whether it's paid to the Secretary of State or not, right? Because the Secretary of State, well, he should produce his public accounts. And if this matter goes to court, well, let's get the Secretary of State in, not some solicitor or some court presenting officer, because they are not the claimants. In fact, the Secretary of State...
That's the most important point, isn't it, Mo? Please phone in. It's 0203 714 2700. This is Windows on the World. We're live. Please phone in. Yes, Mo, that's very interesting because on here, it's in a box at the bottom, and it says, be aware, that authorised officers of the court have the authority to enter your premises without your permission to execute warrants under the Domestic Violence Crime and Victims Act of 2004. Now, they actually also put that on fines, the unpaid fines for civil offences through the police, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, yes, under that act, they can break your door down, but not for civil debt. That's what they don't tell you.
Yeah.
So it's quite cleverly worded, really, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, for a court fine, well, again, go to the court and say, well, show me where you pay this money out to recover it as a debt. I mean, we've had so many magistrates and judges running out to court and say, well, I'm fining you 900 and whatever pound it is, right? I say, right, okay, judge, when are you going to pay us? Because you're creating liability out of thin air, right? Well, I'll put you with the trustee. And the minute you mention the trustee, they're gone, scarpered. We've done that on so many occasions.
The other thing to remember as well is that courts, the same as local county councils, have two sets of books.
Right.
They've got the private set and they've got the public set. You can't see the private set, but you can request to see the public set. And I say that because liability orders with the Child Support Agency run parallel and work in the same way as liability orders for council tax. So how weird is that?
It's all administrative, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, we've all been through this with council tax, and that's a very interesting one. But as we've said before, the council tax actually ties in with the poor laws, so they can actually put you in prison for it because of that. But what we find is the solution, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
which is usually at the administration level, because the administration is usually wrong.
But the best thing to do is you put a claim against them, right? Because obviously they're operating fraudulently, and whichever council member of staff or CSA member of staff's going in there, they're not the claimants, so they don't have first-hand knowledge of the case. I mean, that one when I went with my deduction from earnings order. The court presenting officer, she tried sort of getting out of it by saying, well, I didn't even know there was a court case on today. So she said, well, why are you here? Obviously, you knew about the court. But she didn't have all the facts. They just sort of threw it into court. And, you know, we just sort of, we tore her apart, really. You know, and
this is a very important point, especially with things like council tax, because if you go in and you kind of, you dispute what they're saying, they're usually wrong anyway, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. But the thing is, don't ever dispute, don't ever appeal, because when you're appealing, what you're doing is you're accepting their private law. That's right. Yeah. But what you're saying is, well, I accept it, but I don't want to pay you. No, you don't. What you do is you get a fresh claimant against them. Say, right, bring forward the claimants. Right. Let's see a copy of your accounts.
That's a very important point. You have to start it all over again.
Yes, you do.
You can't go on with their administrative process. You have to create your own.
Exactly. And there never is a claimant, because, like I say, a council or the Child Support Agency, it's a fictional company.
Yeah, they can't be the claimant.
Exactly. So they can't sort of swear
they can be
off.
the complainant. They can be the complainant.
That's all they can do is make a complaint.
That's why it says on the council tax a complaint has been made.
Yeah,
exactly.
CSA liability
It's the same with the summonses from the CSA for liability orders. It will say on the complaint of, and then it will say either a court presenting officer or a member of staff or on behalf of the Secretary of State. And you're quite right. So it's man to man, woman to woman that can make a claim. But any sort of public body or government quang or whatever can only make a complaint.
But it seems funny how I don't know how they sort of get away with this, but the CSA, well, especially the CSA, when they take you into court, but the Law Society is stakeholders of the CSA.
That's interesting. We've got the stakeholders here.
And
it includes policy exchange, which is a government quango.
Exactly. You know, so I mean, there's all these people who've got the fingers in the pie with the Child Support Agency. So it's not about reducing child poverty at all.
That's a smokescreen.
Who are the Institute of Payroll Professionals? Do you know who they are?
Well, they're for any payroll manager or
they're
members
a government charter.
Or any sort of manager of payroll department.
That includes all of them.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, basically what the CSA are doing is covering their backs. So whenever they want to do a deduction from earnings order, any sort of company that employs more than, I don't know, about 30 to 35 people, which most companies do, they're going to roll over and play dead, because they're part of the stakeholders within the CSA. So you're up against this all the time. All the time. I mean, you can try and do FOI requests into your payrolls if it's not part of the company, like your company fishes it out, don't they, to a private company. You can do an FOI request, but of course, because they're a company, they can refuse to comply with it. And you're stuck. But 9 times out of 10, because there's 2 different payroll alliances there that are covered, you're going to be in amongst that lot, and they're going to say, right, we've got to pay it. There have been very few cases, I have to say, where it's been family businesses that have said, no, we're not going to slap this deduction from earnings order on this father. Take us to court, we'll pay the £1,000 fine. You can fine us every month of the year and we'll keep paying the £1,000
corporations
fine.
aren't going to do that, are they?
No.
Exactly, that's what you're up against, that's the thing.
Yeah.
So we do also do that. We do. I mean, at the moment we've got a case on with the Ministry of Justice. So someone's
We've got
actually...
a CCJ against them anyway, haven't we?
Yeah, they have, yes.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's just it.
Yeah, the Ministry of Justice.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be dealing with them really,
No.
because they seem to be
Exactly,
a bit untrustworthy,
yeah.
don't they?
Yeah, well, the CSA are the same. I mean, the last one we got was...
That's in my opinion.
Yeah, £36,000 worth of CCJs the CSA have registered
Yeah.
against them, so they're not trustworthy.
No. Well, going back to the video,
Yeah,
what did
yeah.
you think of that? Because the police appear to be assisting private interests now. In fact,
Yeah,
they
right.
were clearly doing that in that
Yeah,
video.
right. Well, what I strongly recommend to people is you can't take the police on at that present moment in time.
Yeah.
You ain't going to win it, right? You're better off saying, right, okay, get on with it, get the names, get the numbers, right? Because what it is, especially if you get on video, which is what you've done, you actually have them committing a criminal offence, so they've come outside of their public jurisdiction to act as privateers for the private courts and private CSA or private councils. Right? So what you can then do is, because they've stepped outside the public jurisdiction and into private, you can sue them. Because they're no longer protected under the public immunity. Yeah. And that's when you can sue them.
Because that case was a particularly nasty one, really, because he wouldn't play ball with the CSA. It appears that they made an example of that guy.
Well, no, he did play right. He did play ball with the CSA. What it was the solicitors who were issuing threatening demands to him. He again was asking them, show me where you've paid the money out, and they wouldn't. Yeah. They wouldn't. So they're making an allegation, but they can't support it.
Because that case went on for a couple of years, didn't it? Before
Yeah.
that final repossession.
Yeah. Like I say, he went about things the wrong way. He was given advice. He didn't follow that. Hence,
This is Windows on the World. This Sunday morning, we're going to a break very shortly. It's 0203 714 2700. Please phone in. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back to Windows on the World. Our next guest, Nasrin, was evicted from her own property. This was due to a management company issuing charges which she disputed. They had also issued county court proceedings without notifying her. This resulted in a court bailiff turning up with a coordinator who worked with the bailiff, locksmith and the police. Here is the video shot at her eviction.
Before you need to speak to the court bailiff, who's that chap over there. Okay.
Where is he?
The other chap.
Where is it? Oh, he's the court bailiff. Look, all the information you've got is wrong. Yeah.
2 seconds on
Okay.
the phone. Sorry, they're just filming it.
How can you act? You know, look, it's fair. I'm just telling you it's about.
Yeah. Well,
Look.
these
if
things
things
are
are
over my head.
I know, but listen, we've got, because we're officers and you're an officer of the police, to make sure when you bring your paperwork here, it's got to be proper. Because when you're taking people's
So
houses,
this is what I'm trying to say to you.
Yeah.
I don't have any of this paperwork. He has all that paperwork.
Oh, right.
So he's the court bailiff
Yes.
and you are
I'm overseeing it.
from...
So,
Right, okay.
So, listeners, did you know, look, if you're an officer of the Supreme Court,
And I'm not the officer of the Supreme Court.
so this the locum.
I'm overseeing it for the solicitor. I'm coordinating the bailiff, locksmith and the
Well, how can you
police.
could be calling me about it, right?
I have to ensure the locksmith's here,
Yeah.
okay? I have to ensure the court bailiff's here.
Yeah.
And if they have problems, I have to call the police.
Right.
Fortunately, your lady has called the police for us,
Police
so
says
they're
so.
here.
To
The,
keep the peace, yeah.
the bailiff's here, the locksmith isn't.
Yeah.
That's my job. Finished, okay? These mean gobbledygooky to me.
Yeah, but no, but listen, if you're not, listen, your own conscience.
Okay.
If you're carrying something, you're going to take somebody's own. This is
Yeah.
my conscience.
Yeah.
I'll make sure that all the paperwork is in order.
Right.
Now, when you've got no signatures on nothing, no court
this
seals,
is-
then something's a bit wrong, isn't it?
So, effectively you've assisted the bailiffs. That's what you've done. You've come down today, you was called by this lady for assistance because she was afraid, and you've ended up
This
assisting
is what they do. This is what we're
bailiffs and a gentleman who's a coordinator for the solicitors. Look, you've got the woman screaming
Look at that
upstairs.
screaming, look.
She
This
owns
is the
her own
assistance.
home.
This is the assistance they're supposed to be giving you. They've got no morals, no manners, no nothing, no respect for nobody. No people, nothing. These are the officers what's supposed to be protecting the law. They're standing under the law, but they think they're above it.
No, they're just assisting commercial entities like bailiffs, like private companies and solicitors firms, and taking over people's private property. A lady called for assistance from the police, and she's now been arrested, handcuffed, took out of her own home. Sergeant, what police station are you taking her to?
Oh my goodness.
Sergeant?
Have a seat. Don't actually necessarily go into a police station at this time.
What has she been arrested for?
Breach of the peace.
Breach of the peace, yeah? And are you taking her to...
Will you just cover her for now? Yeah, nice.
Well, that video was very shocking because Nasrin was actually peacefully occupying her own property and she was arrested for breach of the peace in her own house. Nasrin, welcome to Windows on the World.
Thank you for having me on.
We did discuss this on Richie Allen's show, didn't we?
Yes, we touched on it, yes.
Yes,
yeah.
but can you tell us exactly what happened in the process of, basically, it appears that a private company or solicitors working for private interests took your property. How did this happen?
To cut a long story short, because I want to keep it short and
keep it simple, just the main points, yeah.
Basically, my property has been stolen for a nominal amount of £162. Yeah. That's the long and short of it. Yeah. So where's the due process in that? I went to their venue that they took me to the court. It was the wrong venue. It should have been the leasehold tribunal, the leasehold valuation tribunal, because it's a leasehold property. But I wasn't aware of that at the time. So I've been on a very long learning curve myself, and when I watched that, and that's been very painful for me to watch because I've just watched.
You've never seen it before.
I've never seen it before. I've got my friends to watch it and tell me what's happened, but it's very painful to watch because in that instance I realised something terrible is happening in this country. I'm a layperson and I have some knowledge of the law, and I'm a peaceful person, been to school, been educated, bought myself a property. I own all the equity in that property, £140,000. There's no mortgage, so I've worked hard. And it was taken from me for £162.
People are going to be really shocked at that, actually, and people should be shocked at that. Please phone in. It's 0203 714 2700. So, yeah, it's incomprehensible, really, isn't it, what happened?
It's surreal. What took place there was surreal. I called on the help of the police. And what I learnt after the fact, and I know you've watched the video as well, the police are aiding and abetting the theft of property without a warrant. Now, on that particular day, I was upstairs. They prevented my colleagues coming back upstairs to check that I was okay. Single woman on her own in the property trying to defend it. I've got two males on the outside of my property threatening to break the door down, which they're not allowed to do.
Well, something that wasn't on that video, actually, is that gentleman who's helping you. He was being sort of he was trying to get his point over, and because he was losing the argument, that police officer said, you've spit on me twice, which of course he hadn't.
Exactly.
And so he was trying to find an excuse to get him arrested, basically, you know, which I thought was pretty contemptible.
Absolutely, and I had thought, I'd made a phone call to the police because I was in distress. Instead of the police coming and checking with me that I was okay, that I wasn't about to collapse in my own property with the stress that was before me, no. They had their discussions with the bailiff, they had the interaction with my colleagues downstairs. The next thing I know is the police that I've called to assist me are aiding and abetting the theft of my property.
Absolutely.
Because they started breaking the door down.
And that guy said he was overseeing the matter for the and coordinating the matter for the bailiffs, the locksmith and the police. We have a call from David Sheen. David Sheen, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. How you doing? Great
All right,
show.
David. Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Brilliant. Okay, yeah, well done for getting this information out there. You've got two videos there now where you've got police enforcing what is a private matter and arresting people in peaceful occupation of their own property. This is vital that this information gets out there. What I originally phoned in for was because I was watching, obviously, you know, I've got the experience with Deadbeat Dads.
Absolutely, and you've been a guest on this show.
Yes, I have. And the thing that came to mind while I was watching was you was talking about the made-up debts, okay? And we know that the debts are made up. You've got the evidence there. They're 300% inflated. And we know they're completely fictitious in most cases. But what you didn't touch on was that when these CSA officers go into court, they have to swear an oath that the debt is owed.
That's a really good point, David. Yes, they are under oath. Yeah.
That's the point I've got to make, and I have got to go because I've got to rush off to work.
All right.
Otherwise, I would love to have been there with you. But
well, David, we'll probably see you later on.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very important point, isn't it, Mo?
Yes, yeah. They must swear an oath, but the thing is, what are they swearing? Because they don't have the first-hand knowledge of the case. Oh. So that's it, and they're not going in there as the claimants. So if they're not in there as the claimants, they don't have first-hand knowledge of the case, get them out of there.
Well, I just a kind of, it's obviously it's dwarfed in comparison to what happened to you, Nasrin, but in my council tax case, the guy actually swore an oath for completely an amount that I didn't owe. They had no proof that I owed. Yeah. And they just go in like robots. They can't really help it, but that's exactly what's happening, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
they're just thinking they're doing an administrative job, and they go, it's actually quite serious. They commit perjury.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, we've actually had that. I mean, we won the cases where someone's a member to court in one court wasn't in his area, so we asked that court, can we move it to a court in his area, which they agreed to. They give him a new date. In between those two dates, the CSA wrote and said, oh, we've got a liability order against you. I thought, well, the case hasn't been heard yet. Yeah. So when we actually went in for the second case, we sat there and they said, we're here for this amount. And we said, well, can you just repeat that amount again? It was for the same amount that was on this alleged liability order. So we just stood up and we said, well, unfortunately, you've already got a liability order for this amount. But she stood up and swore on the Bible, right, that we haven't got a liability order for that amount. So I just showed them to the magistrate. I said, right, you've just witnessed this person perjuring herself on oath. What are you going to do about it? No, get her out of here. No, she needs to go to prison. She's perjured herself on oath. And the magistrate didn't want to know.
Well, this is the thing I've been on to my local council about. I wrote to my MP to actually say what can be done with public servants who commit misconduct in public office, because it's a criminal offence. Didn't get a reply, of course.
No, you won't do, because they're actually gagged by their own government.
Absolutely.
They're just there to sort of control us in their area. That's all they're there for.
To get back to your case, Nasrin.
Well, in my case, in court, what was very interesting is the solicitors, the claimants are in London, they're a freeholder. And recently, 2 MPs went into Parliament, and they're exposing now the fraud that's taking place in leasehold properties, because my property is a leasehold property, trying to steal, let's get the terminology right, they're trying to steal your property for a nominal fee of a few £100, ground rent, whatever it is. It has to be unlawful. Now, in my case, when they took me to court... In your case,
you paid the ground rent back, though, didn't you? You owed a bit of ground rent.
There was £162 remaining, and I would have happily paid that, but they don't want to negotiate, they want conflict. They take you to court. In my case, what was interesting is the claimant didn't attend, because it's actually a dormant company.
So you offered remedy anyway.
Company.
You offered remedy. You offered the remedy.
Absolutely, all along the way. And I'll go on to that, because that's very, very important, what you just touched upon in terms of me paying. Because when they took me to court, the solicitor, who were based in Newcastle, weren't there. The claimant wasn't there. They had an agent, some random agent that the solicitor had employed, who claimed to know everything about me, and it was all hearsay. They took me to the wrong venues. I'm in the wrong venue, and then they didn't even complete their own process. There was no particulars of claim. So I don't know what they're actually claiming for, what they're claiming for. So this is something I've learned after the fact now. Their whole procedure that they have to follow is desperately flawed. Now, what's interesting is, after they took me to court, the freeholder who's taken me to court, employed solicitors, they're accepting rent from me as we speak. So it's the solicitors now stealing my property.
And they're still taking your rent?
Yes.
For damage.
So they're trying to forfeit the lease while they've accepted 2 payments after they took me to court. So it's now what we're finding now, it's the solicitors who are stealing my property. And I went back into my property after that fiasco that day. That was traumatising, to say the least. What you didn't see on there is when I arrived at the custody suite, this sergeant, because in the van I was telling him about the law and how he'd broken it, and how he's a civil servant and how, you know, there's a coronation oath.
Public servant.
Yeah, his whole body language changed. He's 6'4" man, you know, whole body language changed. When I arrived at the custody suite, he apologised for arresting me. He apologised, and I said to him, "What are you apologising for?"
Well, they should be standing up for your rights in the first place.
Yeah, that's right.
They're a private army now.
And he didn't read me my rights. They just carted me off like I was kidnapped that day. And all my neighbours were watching, probably thinking she's a delinquent mortgagee, a mortgagor.
Absolutely. Everyone thinks you've committed a criminal offence when you're just peacefully occupying your house.
And on the door, they put it's a repossession.
Yes, that's what they did in that previous case as
that's
well.
what
We
they
have
do.
another caller. We have another caller. Caller, are you there? Well, I think we've got a caller on Windows on the World this Sunday morning. Have we got a caller? Hello.
Hello there. It's Kenny here. I'm from Darlington, chap. You all right?
Ah, yes.
Right. What I want to get across here is it's quite simple. I mean, I've been researching conspiracy theories, etc., and the way the world's going at the moment is going downhill. You know the score. I've been researching what you've been researching for a long time. I just don't openly, you know, go on blogs, etc. I read about it, I study it. What people have got to understand now is your council tax, the government, etc., it all boils down to one thing: consent of the governed. We have to have consent for statutes to be the law.
Yeah, we looked into this several years ago, actually, Kenny, and in certain cases that's not true, especially with council tax, because the consent is implied because of the poor laws. The council tax actually comes from the poor laws from the 15th century, and it came from a thing called the Certificate of Settlement, which came the birth certificate, national insurance number, and passport. If you look on your passport, have you got a passport, Kenny?
No.
You haven't got a passport, okay. But did you give your passport up?
No, it just expired and I don't have it,
Okay, but if you have a look on the passport, it'll say type of passport and it'll say P. The P stands for pauper, and this is Roman law. Yes. We're under Roman law. When we were born, that birth certificate bonded us to the state. We have a fiduciary duty because of that birth certificate. But what we're discussing today is how we can operate in their system, because the system is completely flawed. I do take your point, though. Is there any other points you'd like to say about what we've been discussing today?
What about the Magna Carta? The affidavit and the Magna Carta, what's that? You know, that's exactly the same as...
what would the Magna Carta have to do with what we've been discussing today?
I'm under common law. I want to live by the law of the land. I don't recognise your government. I don't want to paint your government. I think you're acting on behalf... You're funding terrorism. I don't agree to that. I don't agree to anything about this government. It's wrong, absolutely wrong.
What we have to do, Kenny, is we have to find the solution within their system, which is what we're trying to do. We've all tried this. We've all tried the Freeman approach, haven't we?
Yes.
Can I just come in? Obviously, Ken, do you drive on the roads? Do you use public footpaths?
Well, that's it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But so what we're saying is, right? You're saying you don't stand under their thing, right? Yeah, you want to stand under there because the thing is, you are the beneficiary. They are the trustee. What you've got to remember here is they are spinning it around, making you the trustee and themselves the beneficiary. And I've just given Mark a document there where we've actually proven when a court finds you, the courts are actually putting themselves down as the beneficiary. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Right? And we've got that in black and white on a receipt. Right? So
that would make sense.
We want to benefit from all the things they've given to us. All we want to do is stop them making us being the implied trustee. They are the trustee.
Well, it's like David says, and David Icke's always saying on his shows and that, you've got to have a non-compliance state. But how are we going to do this? How are we going to actually...
We need numbers, Kenny. That's the problem is...
Out in the open and say, you know what? Enough is enough. Stop it now.
We are doing...
Because it's pathetic.
Yeah, we are.
Kenny, that's actually what we're doing, because if you listen to what Mo's doing, he's offering solutions. We've found solutions on these previous shows, and I really appreciate that your passion, you know, because that's how we all feel. The problem is that we can be falling into their trap with a lot of this Freeman approach, and we have tried it. I went to the verge of bankruptcy with council tax. I found out that's a complete scam, the way the courts are working, and the Royal Courts of Justice are involved, and we found all this out. And this administrative process will go on relentlessly. What we're doing is finding solutions within their system, which is where it hurts them. Thanks for your call, Kenny.
That's a quick one on that.
Okay, quick point. Yeah, go on.
There is no contract with anybody. They have to have under the Exchange of Goods Act.
I don't know quite what that refers to.
Well,
but
that's
it's
a private call anyway.
You have to have consent by yourself. So the council has to have a signed bill of exchange between you and the council.
That's actually not true, Kenny. But thanks for your call anyway. Yes.
All right, Mark. Take care. Yeah.
Cheers then.
Cheers, Mark.
Yeah. So we're going to go to a break shortly. Nasrin, just in rounding up, because we're going to come back to your case in a minute. But just, is there anything else you'd like to say in response to that?
I'd just like people to learn the law, learn what your rights are. I know that if I knew some fundamental things about the simple procedure, that I could really have stopped the court proceeding. But you know, it's a learning curve. It's a learning curve, and I just want people to. When people buy a leasehold property, I want them to really know what they're buying, because their solicitor, they're not going to tell them. So they really need to do their own homework, because that's where the scam starts. Yeah. They don't tell you what you're buying into. That's why they happily know they can take it away from you. Yeah. But it's not lawful. Yeah. It's not, nothing they've done is lawful.
No, it's not in your case. I mean, theoretically, for non-payment of ground rent, the lease can be forfeited. But in your case, you made the remedy, you paid that, but they actually took you to court without you knowing. Isn't this right?
Well, they took me to the wrong venue. They have to take you to the leasehold because there were service charges that I was being charged.
It was the service charges you were disputing, wasn't it?
That's right. That's right. But they took me to the wrong venue. Alongside that, I really need to urge that if there's anyone out there who's thinking of buying, you know, a leasehold property, they really need to understand what they're buying. They can't forfeit the lease for a nominal sum of rent. Now, in my case, they took me to court. They were threatening to take me to court for non-payment of £700. The threshold is actually £350. There were some county court judgments against me that were sitting on file for since 2008.
We're going to talk about that
where have they been?
Nasrin, we're going to go to a break now. We'll see you after the break. This is Windows on the World on this Sunday morning. Welcome back to Windows on the World. Our next guest, Hez, disputed the terms of his mortgage and stopped payment. He was threatened with repossession. Eventually, he paid the arrears plus 3 months in advance, but was still evicted. Here is the video which documents the evidence of the eviction.
From the claimant who's hiding over there.
Lawful authority uses or threatens violence for the purpose of securing entry into a premises for himself or any other person is guilty of an offence.
Yeah.
I'll
identify myself as
no,
a county
you're not.
bailiff.
You're not.
I'm going to carry out this warrant of possession right now. I'm going to go to the door and I'm going to open the door. Anything you do to stop me is a breach of the peace and you'll get yourself in trouble.
What we're asking for, you're trespassing.
No, I'm going to the door. I'm going to the door. I'm going to the door.
We are going to the door.
I'm going to the door.
We are not
mate. Don't start on me.
We are resisting peacefully.
Don't touch me.
After the coming from you.
That's it, as long as it's peaceful.
You do it, you're grabbing me. I will come up. Well, let go, let's go. I'm not a dog. I'm not a dog. Move away from me. Move away from me. I'm not a dog. What's he done? What's he done? No, leave him alone. He ain't doing nothing. Well, let go. Let's go. I'm not a dog. I'm not a dog. What's he done? What's he done? Move away from me. Rather than crossing about him. You're breaking the law.
Oh my God!
It's a fucking head, mate.
Stand back.
Custody in the last 11 years in the black community and not one officer has been convicted.
Please, the inspector is there trying to push the door. And he's got no warrant to do that.
Bailiffs are about to break in. So police will be standing by to prevent the breach of peace. If you lay hands on the bailiff, we can consider that to be an offence. Witness it.
And comply.
Don't worry. There's more and more waking up. So you're going to have a lot of work on.
How about being lawful?
A lot of biscuits and tea.
Recently, huh? Yeah, bro.
No! Barricade the door! Barricade the door!
No, this becomes a legal matter.
What's the story?
No,
Why the fuck is funny?
The trapped his signature, and they cannot sign it.
Windows on the world. This information we're getting out is extremely important, and you will not find it anywhere in the mainstream media. They will not touch this, so please donate, as we may be running out of money very soon. We need to keep this on the air. We need to keep helping people. Please donate and do phone in. And I think we have a caller. Do we have a caller?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello?
Hello, caller. Hi.
Hello, hi, and morning, everybody. I wanted to pose a question regarding tax and council tax. 2 years ago, my business closed down, and I had arrears with my business rates and fell behind with council tax.
Sorry to interrupt. It's business rates and council tax, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I received a package from the council saying that if it's not paid, they were going to make me bankrupt. I tried to arrange a repayment amount that was reasonable to the income that I was earning. But I mean, they asked for something silly like £700 a month on top of my current payments. So I was trying to, fight with them to try and get in a reasonable amount, which we kind of arranged an amount which was in the region of £100 on top of my current council tax payments. But I just wanted to know, basically, did they have, the law, basically, could I have fought that bankruptcy threat? Can you fight when they send bailiffs to your house and all that kind, all that kind of procedure?
Yes, you can with council
methods
tax,
that they
yes.
use.
Yes.
Where can we, research and find out the information and know what to write back to them and to fight our cause? Because it's just, like you say, it's not out there in the media. And when you do, I contacted my MP, who was...
Sorry, I'm laughing. You shouldn't laugh.
He's a cabinet minister anyway. Ian Duncan Smith, right? Ian Duncan Smith, and I got no reply.
Gets worse.
At all. So it's clearly, there are things that have been hidden from us, and we don't have the you know, the information and the resources to fight the councils, and that's what I wanted to.
Well, absolutely. I think you've phoned the right people, because I have a website called landofthefree.co.uk where you can see how to deal with the administrative summons and everything to do with council tax, and everything from basically when they summons you to court to what you can do for remedy. When you go into court, you'll often find that you'll have to wait for a long time if you want to sort something out. But if you sort things out with a magistrate, they're often sick of hearing these stories of people who are trying to get some kind of remedy with especially business rates. When I went into court disputing basically I accused my local council of fraud, and I won the case. So the magistrates can be very sympathetic, because they're sick and tired of the council and their lack of administration and the mistakes they make. And the council officials don't know that often they perjure themselves when they go into court. So you can use all this against them, and the Fraud Act comes in very handy as well. Just go over to Mo here.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, are they making her bankrupt, or are they making the business bankrupt?
That's a very important point, you see. So presumably they're going after you and not the name of the business, yeah?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Right, so you are not the business, are you? But what you can do is, again, demand the council's public accounts to show where they paid out this money, in order for them to collect as a debt, because let's not forget, council tax is paid for in advance. Yeah. Right? So they're saying you're in arrears, but they haven't provided you with a service. Mm-hmm. So you demand to see a copy of their public accounts, and then what you do, if they try to continue to take you into court, you take a separate claim against them. Yeah. Yeah, and you ask for the claimant. You want the claimant to be present. Mm-hmm. Right?
It can't just be the council as a collective that take you into court. Yeah. It has to be one person that takes you into court.
That's right.
Even if the council as a collective make the complaint.
It has to be that person that has suffered the loss. Yeah. So you're telling me that some minion worker for a council has suffered, you know, £800 a month loss in order to take you into court? No.
Find out who the head of the business rates section is, for instance. Start to target them. Find out who the head of the council tax section is and target them.
Rather than the organisation.
Yeah. The minute you do that, they'll back off. The minute you do that, they'll back off.
I've done this with my local council, but I've actually named everybody who's committing fraud, and they're on the website landofthefree.co.uk. So every person in Waltham Forest who's committed fraud against me is named on that site. But our next guest is Hez, and that video is very shocking, wasn't it? Because your elderly parents were living with you, and your mother's 75, suffers from a heart condition and blood pressure. Your father's 83 years old, he's registered blind and suffers from high blood pressure.
Yes, yeah. It was very traumatising for them. But I don't know, I mean, where should I start? I mean, well, basically, I mean, that we got the property like sort of 11 years ago, and 2011, we started looking for the contract. And we noticed that there wasn't, well, basically what we was doing was just looking through the paperwork and noticed that there wasn't a contract. And from that point, we actually wrote to the bank and asked them for a copy of the contract.
Would this be the thing that's signed by both parties?
That's correct, yeah. And the bank would not respond in any way. So we wrote back to them again a month or so later, requesting a copy of the contract. And they again ignored, and the letter that we wrote to them actually stated that if you don't respond, then basically what we'll do is withhold payment until we see the contract. And this went on for some time until basically they actually took us to court. Mm-hmm. And when I went to court, I actually said in the court that I will pay anything that I lawfully owe once I see a copy of the contract. And this went on for about a year or so, backwards and forwards, until eventually the eviction date. Yeah. You know, and this is what happened.
But by this time, you'd offered remedy, hadn't you?
Sorry, by this time?
You'd offered remedy. You'd actually paid the arrears.
Yes. Well, we actually paid the arrears after the eviction. That's when we actually paid the arrears. But then, in paying the arrears, we actually paid 3 months on top as well. Yeah. And the bank didn't really accept that. And in a nutshell, they basically said that they want me to clear the whole mortgage. They wanted me to pay the whole mortgage. So
there may be a clause in there that says you have to do that. Have you looked into that?
They have mentioned that there is a clause. In fact, I received a letter, I think it was yesterday, that mentioned about the clause. So I had to look that one up. I haven't actually looked it up yet, but yeah, that's the situation.
So your main contention is that they ignored you and they didn't write back to you with any information that you requested?
That's correct, yeah. Everything was totally ignored. They wouldn't respond to any letters that we wrote requesting this contract.
How much had you paid of the mortgage?
Sorry, how much was I paying?
Yeah. How much had you paid?
Oh, how much had I paid in order to clear the arrears?
No, so how far were you paying off the mortgage? What how much did you pay?
Right, yeah, 10 years, yeah.
Yeah.
10 years. Yeah.
Okay. So basically it was after the eviction that you offered remedy?
It was after the eviction the remedy was offered.
Yeah.
Which we felt was sufficient because, as I said, it was 3 months on top of the arrears was paid. Yeah. So really, I've paid right up until March, you could say. So, and I'm not in my property at the moment. Yeah. You know, when they did take the property, they actually secured it, and they placed security in there, 24 hours a day, and 2 large dogs as well, which I've never heard of anything like this before.
Maybe that's due to the case of the earlier one we saw, Bambos, because he just broke back into his place, didn't he?
Okay, yes, so maybe that could be...
Maybe that's what's happening. People haven't got anywhere to live. What are they going to do? Break back into the houses, really, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, have you got anything to say about that, Mo?
I mean, at the end of the day, I had this problem with my mortgage company because I said to them, show me the proof you loaned me the money. Because we found out the whole mortgage it's a con.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the money's never paid out.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it's your signature that creates the funds.
Yeah. Yes.
And basically all they're doing is they're just acting as like an intermediate from the investors.
Yeah, you're paying back the capital plus interest. You're paying for it.
Exactly.
3 times over.
But I mean, it's the damage. What they cause you. And basically, if the claimant isn't in court, well, that judge shouldn't have granted any eviction orders.
Can you tell us a bit about what happened in court?
In court, well, everything that we stated, the judge was ignoring it. I mean, he didn't take nothing on board at all. We pointed out a lot of facts. I don't know if my missus would have a bit to say on that. I'll let her talk on that bit.
Okay, come on then, Pat. What have you got to say?
Well, we said a lot of the laws to the judge, and the judge completely just ignored everything we had to say.
Sounds about right, doesn't it, Maureen?
Yes.
Just railroaded everything we said.
It's the administrative process again.
Yeah, you've got to get everything on paper.
Yeah.
So where are you now with this? What's happened?
At the moment, we're trying to negotiate in some sort of form or fashion, but it looks like that we're looking at getting another mortgage elsewhere.
Well, at the moment, the solicitors have got our house up for sale.
Yes.
Yeah, and according to them, they have a buyer for it.
Yep.
So how much have you put into that property? How much have you paid in?
Oh, it would be. It's almost 200,000, I would say.
Yeah.
And that's shocking, really, isn't it, Mo?
Yeah, it is.
You know, all right. There may be a clause that says they can do that within the small print, but it should go through some procedure and it should have remedy. Sorry, Nasrin, what were you saying?
What I'm aware of, remember earlier I mentioned particulars of claim? Yeah. They never served a particulars claim in my case, so I didn't know what exactly they're claiming for, because in that they have to give a concise history, who's in the property, because my property was rented out, how it would affect me financially, because that's my livelihood. When I looked at, and please correct me if I'm wrong, particulars of claim, how much are they actually suing for? In Hez's case, it was just for the rent arrears.
That's correct.
He's paid it for the mortgage rent arrears. So he's paid, so technically his house should come back to him.
Yes.
Well, if
you own the equity in it.
If there's a clause, why not use that in court in the particulars of claim?
But the thing is, what I keep state to everybody now is, the minute a claim is made against you, Right? There's no claim because obviously the mortgage lender, there's nobody specifically at that company who's lent you the money.
There's no one
person. So what you do is you put a claim in against them for the damages, and what you can also do is you can put in a notice to order the court to force the other side to produce whatever you require. So the particular claim, and the reason why they're ignoring you when you're going into court is because when you speak, words disappear into thin air. Yeah. You've got to get on paper. So when you go in there, right, you've filed your paperwork, all you need to go in and say is, please refer to the court.
Absolutely, it's all hearsay unless it's written down. Law has to be informed, it has to be on paper. And as we've seen, the form that they're giving us is absolutely illegal.
Correct.
Yeah. In my case, there was no warrant, by the way. That's the most important thing I need to drive home. There was no warrant.
Yeah. That was very important, and I was just going to bring that up, actually, Nasrin.
I mean, sometimes you forget, you know, there was no warrant.
It seemed like, it looked to me like a general form of judgment or order from a county court.
Which is worth nothing.
That's right, they can't evict you on that. No. You have to have warrant of possession.
That's right. So I went back into my property in October, and I served them notices on them to let them know I've done that. 2.5 weeks ago, I went to check my property. It's been boarded up, the door. So they broke back into my property without any warning whatsoever. And when you go to the police say it's a civil matter. Well, hang on a minute, what were you doing?
Because you paid 140,000, you paid £200,000. Where's it gone?
There's the evidence they're operating privately.
That's right.
Absolutely.
You bring out the private back into the public and you've got them.
There's another way of knowing that they act privately as well, is when these evictions are taking place and you see a locksmith, you see someone with a black jacket from HMCTS, there's always somebody else there.
Yes.
There's always another person.
For the claimant?
Well, the point being that they don't have any HMCTS thing on, but they stick to the bailiff and they'll stick to the locksmith.
Well, that's the guy who said he was overseeing it and coordinating with the bailiff, locksmith and the police.
If you look at all the videos on YouTube, the point I'm trying to make is the course that I'm at the point of completing now, and the reason why I'm self-employed, which I'm not going to give too much away, but what I can tell people, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to do it, is they're private investigators. Because it's a conflict of interest. When a court issues anything a notice to get someone out of the property, the court bailiff can't actually take possession of that property because it's a conflict of interest. There has to be a private investigator there. Doesn't matter who's employing the private investigator, providing it's not the court, for the handover to then go to them. And then they, whoever the mortgage company is or the bank or building society or whatever, they then give the keys back to them.
That would make sense.
Look through the videos on YouTube.
That would make sense.
And there will
That's
be.
a very good point that we've talked about previously.
Yes.
Can you actually outline how that actually happens and why that works to people out there?
Basically, okay, I get a phone call, got a job for you. It can be a particular court or it can be the mortgage company, and they will say, right, we need you to take a possession, and then it's whatever fee is charged for taking the possession, and you agree to it or not. The information is either emailed to you, faxed to you, or you go and collect it, and then you see what the property is, and they say, right, you need to liaise with the court bailiff, can be a high court bailiff or whatever, county court bailiff, whatever, as we know, and you then liaise with them, what time you're going to be there, the date of the eviction, you obviously can't say anything, and you're to take repossession from the bailiff once they've got in. Because
so
the bailiff can't do it.
So do you think that's what that guy was doing there in
It has to be, because that is the true process.
So there's only two of them. One was a court bailiff and the other one was this coordinator.
Yes, which is a private investigator. Yeah. It's as simple as that.
One thing I'd like to
This is Windows on the World, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back to Windows on the World this Sunday. Please phone in, it's 0203 714 2700. And the information that we're putting out today you will not get anywhere in the mainstream media. You will not see this on the BBC, Channel 4 or any of the other channels. So please support this channel. We may be gone very soon if we don't get more public support. Now, getting back to our debate today, we've talked to Hez, Nasrin and Mo and Sherry from Deadbeat Dads, and we're discussing how property is being taken unlawfully. Please phone in if this has happened to you. 0203 714 2700. So, Sherry, as you were saying just before the break, about the private
basically,
investigators.
Yeah, if you check out the YouTube videos, there will always be another body floating around, and they're floating quite close to the court bailiff. Not necessarily by the locksmith, but there will always be another body there. They look quite professional. They may have dark clothing on, and sometimes it's that case of the illusion, because they're in dark clothing and the court officers in the bailiff officers in dark clothing, or they're one and the same. No, they're not. It just depends who the person is or the company is that says, look, usually 9 times out of 10 it's the mortgage company, I have to be honest, and they say, right, we've got a job for you. What do you charge? This is what we charge. Right, liaise with the court bailiff. You go down on the day. They give you a bit of spiel. This is what we're going to do, because the private investigator has to take possession, because it's a conflict of interest for the court bailiff to actually do that, because it's the court that have given the warrant, unsigned or whatever, for the eviction. So the court bailiff cannot take possession of that property. He can't physically take those keys and then take them into the court. Can't do it.
Because he's not authorised to do so.
No, he's not, but it's a conflict of interest, because it's the
I
court.
thought county court bailiffs could. Does that prove the point that they're not county court, they're certified bailiffs then?
Yeah, the private.
I think they've just exposed
You see, we're getting back to this. It's all in the private.
Certified bits.
It's all in the private.
See, that's the massive deception.
The only way really that you can sort of, as it was pointed out to me in the break, is sort of just go on the internet and do a quick search of private investigators, firms or self-employed or whatever in the area, and just basically ring them.
How
Honestly,
did you find this out?
It's thank you very much. It's a course.
Yeah,
it's a course
our eviction,
undertaken.
We asked where
Right.
the
And
bailiffs were.
it tells you.
So there is actually a course where these people go on
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
assist in these repossessions.
Yes.
See, that would make sense, because certified bailiffs are private companies and they're very limited in their capacity of what they can do. So
that makes sense, because
that
straight
really makes
after
sense
our
now.
eviction, we asked, where's the bailiffs? They said they've gone. I said, how could they have gone?
Yeah.
They're the ones that got in. I said, no, the police are there clearing
Well,
up.
it's the PI that then hands the keys over either to the court or to the mortgage lender or bank or whatever.
Yeah. Hey, we have a caller, Mauricio from Manchester. Are you there?
Hello.
Hi, welcome to Windows on the World. Are you there? Hello? You seem to be breaking up a bit. I can hear you, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think she's called Sherry, the lady of the
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you so much for all this information. It's really good, and to the person you left as well. I'm just wondering if you guys have a website or anything, or a blog or anything like that, where you put all the stuff out where we can, follow you.
Yeah, can you just tell us about the website, man?
Yeah, the website, it's www.deadbeatdadsassociation.co.uk. We do have a forum. We sort of vet people before they're accepted in there, because obviously we don't leave it open, for every sort of Tom, Dick or Harry to sort of...
Well, you might get the CSA trying to
Yeah,
join.
exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So we...
Invariably we do.
We'll have to put the thing back on the website regarding how to join the forum, because we actually took it off air for quite a while.
But initially just email us if you've got anything that you want. I mean, predominantly we deal with child support agency matters, as you know, but if there's anything else that you're interested in, then just email us, and just for the attention of whichever, and it's to do with this, concerning this.
And just like Windows on the World, we solely rely on donations.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly,
absolutely.
yeah.
Which is funded us
well,
to
the
come
channel
down.
relies on donations.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So has anything that's been discussed today affected you, Mauricio?
Well, it's funny that you asked that. I mean, I have. I've been arrested before for recording the police in public, and they sort of.
How can they arrest you for recording the police in public? You're allowed to record the police in public.
And they made up a little story between them to try and justify their actions. Then I actually requested the CCTV that was outside the place where that happened. It was actually an NHS building. When I first went in there, the lady told me that the police had come down and specifically said that I was not to have that recording, even though I requested for a subject request form, that I pay for, that anyone's entitled to. Came down with ID, came down with everything I did to come down, and they still refused it to me. At that point, I looked at the camera in there that was recording us and said, does that camera there have video and sound? Because if it does so, I want the form to request that recording to show evidence that you're denying me a right.
Yeah.
At that moment, everything switched. The lady went into the back, got me the form, told me everything I needed to do, asked me if I was okay. She obviously saw the incident. When I put the request through, I actually gave it to somebody personally and got a receipt from them. However, I never heard back from the NHS. I've got all the contact, all the conversations I had with them. I've done it through Skype. I've recorded it, and still they never did anything. We went to court. Sadly, we lost. We had to dismiss our on-duty solicitor in courtroom at the time because they were lying. They put us down as admitted liability when I'd never admitted liability for anything. That's why I fired them. The judge then said that I couldn't read off my representation, at which point I just stood up and I said, so you're forcing me to have representation that I don't, want. So he said, right, go outside, think about it and come back in. So I just went outside, went back in, said, right, I don't want them to represent me. They're not, At the moment I did that, that's when the other side solicitors pulled out a form saying, look, here is signature from your side saying that you do, you take responsibility for what's in here, which obviously shows that on-duty solicitors are not to be trusted at all. And I mean, in the end, we went to Bolton High Court, or I think it's called, with my girlfriend. She was also charged, and they dropped the charge on her, which was for assault, which was a lie, because the police officers they couldn't get the story straight. One was saying this, the other one was saying that. Luckily, we did have a good solicitor at that time, a good barrister that, made them look like complete fools in the court. Like I said, they dropped her charge, which meant she could go to university and pursue the career that she wanted. But I mean, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I've been watching the show for like 2 days straight now. I knew it was coming out, the People's Voice, but I wasn't aware that it was out already. So yeah, that's my story. I wanted to say thank you to all of you for what you're doing. It's really.
No, that means a lot. Thanks. Thanks for phoning in as well, and that just shows you that this administrative process can be stopped. I mean, they always have to make you liable, and if you don't accept that liability, you have a reason not to accept that liability, then they have to backtrack quite quickly.
I'm sorry, and to the lady in the middle as well. I was going to say, it's funny how it's a civil matter, yet when the police come in and held at that time when they took her out, it was still a civil matter then, but they did have the power then and the force to remove her from her own home. Yet when she went down to ask for their help, oh no, sorry, they're dealing with it, it's a civil matter.
Yeah, it's a civil matter, but you get arrested in your own home for breach of the peace,
The reason why the police won't get involved is because they know that they aided and abetted the theft, so how can they get involved now? And there's two things that the police do. They arrive and aid and abet the theft of your property, and then they arrest you, so the people watching will think that you're a delinquent.
They'll think that you're in error.
Yes. And the claim is breach of the peace. Well, what I would like to know is, what is a breach of the peace? Because I was in my own home.
It's a psychological operation, basically, against the citizens of the country. That's what it is.
And they don't read out your rights either when they do arrest you.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct. They don't do that now.
No, because it's a little arrest to get you out of the way, isn't
We've got another caller.
Right. I was kidnapped. That's
This is good. We've got another caller. We've got another caller come in. Caller, are you there?
Hello?
Hello? Mike from Preston. Are you there? Hello, Mike from Preston.
Hello?
Hi.
Oh, hi, yeah, sorry, I just turned my volume down.
That's great.
Yeah, can you hear me all right? Very quiet.
I can hear you fine, yeah.
Right. I've been through, I'd just like to say hi to Mo and Sherry. It's Mike from Preston. I don't know whether you remember me from a couple of years back.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Another satisfied customer.
House repossession thing a couple of years ago, and had pretty similar results, but a lot of paperwork that I've been asking for at the time, I'm just now starting to get from a mortgage company, and I got just recently a copy of, I don't know whether the two people through the process with their mortgage company, whether they ever got to see a copy of the Form EX96.
Yeah, the X96.
Yeah, they're supposed to have that, yes. Yeah, they're supposed to have that,
Yeah, they have to have that with them, don't they?
Yes, they do, yes.
Yeah, they have to have that.
Has anyone actually seen a copy of it? 'Cause it's quite interesting what it states on it about the use of force.
Okay, can you just tell us what it says then?
Yeah, well, on the one that I've got, it says quite explicitly, a possession warrant by itself does not give a county court bailiff authority to use force to evict.
Yeah, that's right.
However,
that's right.
That's very interesting, isn't it?
Because they served as a
and then in brackets it says...
Is that why they have to get the police to break the door down?
To use reasonable force if that becomes necessary. And what it clearly states is authority to use force to evict.
Yes. Absolutely. Now, that's very interesting because, as we've seen this morning, the police have been assisting these private interests. And what I've found is that we've phoned up of course we have to get through to their press office. So I want to speak to Edmonton Police about what happened in that first case, but I have to dial 101, and then I say we're actually the press, and they say, well, we have to speak to the press office, and you get the press office and you get a soundbite basically. The first soundbite said that the police would never break the door down for a civil matter. Well, we have them on camera doing it. The second call actually said if they did assist in breaking in, then that's a criminal offence.
Yes.
So we've got the police on camera committing a criminal offence.
Yeah. Well, your remedy, as you probably already know, in commerce, anything like this, your remedy always comes after the fact. It's just interesting to note the story that was just sort of relayed about the couple's case on repossession, that they actually made offer of payment after the eviction had taken place. Well, the claimant in that case is obviously going to have an issue with them why they didn't bring the remedy before they had to go through the process of eviction. I mean, I know when I went through my mortgage repossession, it was partly, well, mainly because I was researching the topic of land tenure, the history of land tenure, how the mortgage system works, researching the Property Act 1925 and so on and so forth. So a lot of it was done really to get first-hand knowledge of a lot of things, because as you know yourself, you try and get information out of legal professionals and they're not very forthcoming.
Well, our first duty is to the bar.
Yes. Who? A barrister?
Yes.
Yeah, well, yeah, indeed, yes.
Their last duty is to you.
Well, it's the difference between a lawyer and a barrister, obviously, a big difference, or a solicitor and a barrister, I should say.
Well, the way I look at it, and this is just my own opinion, a solicitor is basically a crack whore, and a barrister is a high-class prostitute.
Well,
that's in my opinion. That's not the opinion of the station or anyone else in the room. I just thought I'd throw that in. If there's any solicitors out there, I'm sorry, but I just had to say it.
Well, it's funny that a few years ago, a friend of our family's son, his 16-year-old son, he was coming back from a teenage disco, local village teenage disco, and it was about 11:30 at night. He was waiting to be picked up by his parents, and the police drove past, asked him what he was doing, and said that if he didn't move on, he'd be arrested for soliciting.
Yeah, how dare you? I'm not even legally qualified.
Well, yeah. But I mean, I just wanted to mention the thing about the EX96. I know I've seen a few people mentioning the EX96 not being able to get copies of it. If you had issues with the police using unnecessary force or any force at all, it should be believed is unlawful, then that form essentially would form the basis of any claim against anyone for trespass against a person or whatever. So.
Yeah, there was a great video with Lawrence Loz, who actually, you know, he got rid of the county court bailiffs, and the police actually stood on their oaths and did their duty.
Yes, they did.
They got rid of them. However, they came back and kicked the door down a few days later, didn't they?
That bailiff was suspended.
But can you tell us a bit about that, Mo?
Well, when I spoke to Loz about it, he said the police actually moved the bailiff on because obviously Loz was well within his rights. They didn't have the X96 form. And when I spoke to him, he says that actual bailiff was suspended. And what they've had to do is the courts have taken a copy of that video to retrain their bailiffs on how not to act.
Yeah, well, when you get them on camera, they don't like it. Exactly. Are you still there, caller?
That's positive. That's something that's moving in the right direction, obviously.
Yeah, but the thing, I mean, we've gained so much more knowledge since the last time we spoke, Mike. You know, and the thing is now, the remedy is so simple.
Well, that is, as you know, Mo, I've just spent nearly 2 years in prison for speaking the truth, so I've had a lot of time to sit down and read the books.
Well, no, what they do, I mean, they put you in prison to try and gag you.
Well, they do, yes, but unfortunately it had quite a reverse effect because they had a very, very good law library where I was, and I managed to get hold of all of the latest up-to-date copies of Archbold, and but spent some good time doing some good research. But the first thing that you read in Archbold, you probably know yourself, on the first page of the first chapter on indictment, it tells you that an indictment in the criminal courts is the common law remedy for the Crown.
Correct, yes, that's what I'm saying. The only law you need to know is common law. That's, and but like I say, a lot of people, they know the laws, but they don't know how to implement it in court. Which is why we now know about the court of record. I mean, I spent, I think all in all, about 6 months listening to different people. And the road I didn't want to sort of continue going down was listening to people who hadn't tried and tested the system. So I started listening to people who had tried and tested the system, right? But even though most of these people were in America, the American laws were based on ours. So we just had to do a bit of research on our own laws, because if you look at the County Court Act 1984, Section 1, Subsection 2, it states that all county courts, all district courts, are courts of record.
Yes, correct, yes. But what you find when you go in on a possession order, you'll be in chambers. When I was having quite an interesting conversation with the judge in my case, he actually leaned over his desk and stopped the tape machine that was recording the proceedings. And I said to him, "You can't do that. It's court of record." And he says, "Yes, I can. It's in chambers."
But the thing is, what you do is when you put your paperwork in, you demand that it remains a court of record. And if he switches that machine off, you object to him.
Well, from my understanding, is it can't do because the foundation of the claim from the mortgage company doesn't warrant a lawful remedy. You know, if you actually follow the law relating to the order and the warrant that's issued out of the county court, it doesn't have any force behind it whatsoever. If you fail
it doesn't, because there is no claimant.
The correct procedure is that they should do you for contempt of court for failing to follow a court order.
But the thing is, there's no claimant. That's the thing. Because
absolutely. Well, there is. It's fictitious claim, and it's a mortgage company.
Exactly. So I mean, if they want to sort of pursue it, then what you do is say, right, okay, well, let's get this into equity. Let's get it into Chancery Court. You know,
that's why they can't, because they have no equitable claim to the property.
Exactly. I mean, we've.
Well, that was interesting, Mo, in the case of that first video, and that totally unlawful eviction was that it did go to Chancery, but it was heard by a master who said he couldn't overturn the order. So if you get something into Chancery and they're still not questioning whether the money was paid out, what do you do then?
Yeah, but you've got to put it on the record. This is what I'm saying. People are taking it into Chancery, but they're not putting it on the record. You have to lay down the foundations for the judge to follow, or the master to follow.
Tell us a bit about the People's Public Court of Record, Mo.
Well, the People's Public Court of Record is basically everything is on paper. You should not be saying anything when you go into court. I mean, I mentioned this when I did an interview on the Skype call 2 weeks ago. What you do is everything goes on paper. You can either put a counterclaim in, but if you put a counterclaim in, you're still accepting their legislation. So the best thing for you to do is put a fresh claim in, and what you do is...
You open another case, basically?
Yes, it's a fresh new case. You're bringing against them, because the last claim that goes in is the first one to be heard. Right, so that's on top of the file. That's the first one that needs to be heard. And then what you can also do is you can put the orders in for the judge to follow, because a court can't move without a claimant. So you put the claim in. You get that claim in, right? You are now moving the court, right? Some people say put motions in. The best thing to do is put the court on notice. Right? Notice the court. You order the court.
You can dismiss a motion. That's the thing.
To order the other side to produce their accounts, produce this, that, and the other, right? And when you go in there, even though the judge, he can still go against you. At the end of it, what you do is void ab initio, because the judge didn't follow his orders. And they say, well, a judge makes his decision. No.
So the order is void from the beginning. Void ab initio.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But keep everything on paper, and if you're in court and the judge, I mean, you can't ignore your paperwork, right? Which they will do. So long as you get on the record, I object, right, or I take exception. Right, you get that once that's recorded, then you can put on, right, and you've got the like, you've got somebody writing down a recording or whatever. And we did have an incident where we told somebody to take a dictaphone into court, and the judge threatened him with contempt of court, and we turned around and said, "Aren't you recording it as well?" He said, "Well, I have to." "Well, aren't we all equal under the law?" And the judge had to agree. We're all equal.
And he was allowed to record it.
And he was allowed to record it.
You know, you actually, if you read very carefully the contempt of court legislation that deals with people recording in court, if you do your research, you'll actually find that there's case law that actually backs up the claim for you to be able to use recording devices. You are actually allowed to record in court.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, if the judge threatens you with contempt, you object to it. If he threatens to send you to prison, you object to it, and he can't imprison you. He can't. So long as you object, the minute you say silent, you've accepted what he says, and he'll send you down. Right? You put in, I object.
Absolutely, and the strides made forward by yourself over the past couple of years, absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
You know, do phone. It's 0203 714 2700. Now, just as a slight diversion, in the third part of the show, which I think we're in, I caught up with Birthrights, who are from the Black Country. The band perform what is described as steampunk, so the past may well be the future in this new genre. This is Mark Windows for the People's Voice with Birthrights, who are from the Black Country. So do you want to introduce yourself? First you, sir.
I'm Johnny Zoyden and I play the guitar.
You play the guitar?
I do indeed.
Max Linthorpe, bass guitar.
Erasmus Voss, vocalist.
Declan Lumbier, drums.
So how long have you been together?
We've been together roughly around about 4 years in this lineup.
Yeah. So who writes most of the songs? Do you all co-write?
We all co-write, yeah. Everybody puts in their little bit. I come up with some words.
So what's the music scene like there in the Midlands? I would say the Midlands generally.
Probably like it is down here, quite dull. Quite jeans, t-shirt or sort of heavy metalish things.
And I see quite a few bands and it's the same. Okay, some of them are getting pretty good and the people standing there looking at their feet, looking at the shoes, looking at the walls, looking anywhere. They're not even moving, stood there playing.
How do you find the music business these days? Because a lot of the venues have closed down, haven't they?
Well, it's one of the reasons that we picked up on the steampunk thing, because steampunk has a genre that plays or offers a lot of opportunities to play. But they're not normal gigs, they're not rock pubs or anything like that. They're in really weird places like old Victorian pavilions or on boats. Because what they do, they put on days or a weekend and we become part of that. So the music is part of the whole event, but not the main part of it.
I think the days of going to grotty venues that charge £5 a pint are probably over, aren't they?
Well, we've gone out to that thing where you put on a gig and you sell your own tickets and then you have to give the doorman something. We don't do any of that, so we get paid for what we do. So it's quite good. So in terms of steampunk events, there's quite a lot of opportunities for us. I mean, that's the ethos of the band really, is good music, in your face, put on a show, give people a night out. If they're paying to come in, give them something, you know, for their money.
I think that's a great philosophy because that might just excite people enough to get off their sofas and go out.
They don't just want to see a band that looks like they've just come out of work and turned up and playing. They want to see something else, and I think to a degree, this is what we do, and we excel at doing this. And it gives the public something more than just a band in jeans and t-shirt, effectively.
When I came down in like late 70s with the punk thing or the new romantic thing, there were a lot of people dressed up and doing whatever, doing their own things. But now it's all Mumford and Sons, isn't it, to be fair?
So what kind of snare drum do you prefer for these small gigs?
Oh, blimey, that's a question. Well, yeah, I've got the hand-hammered Mapex at the minute. Now, that's a 16-inch, 5.5-inch deep. It's got Evans heads on it. They're hydraulic as well. They've got no dampening on them whatsoever, and they've got a Remo snare going across the back of them. And it's gonna blow your ear.
That's a mighty mixture. I did. That's why I brought it up.
We are all not old, but past what people would say was the normal age for being in a rock band. And I think it's sort of important to push the fact that guys like us can still do this. You know, and we go and play sometimes in rock clubs to bands who are 18 and 19. And we walk in and they go, what are these boring old farts going to do? And we crack it.
We're going to blow your head off, actually, Sonny Jim.
A few bars in and they're all... a few bars in, they're all standing there going, what happened there? So you can, it's really good in that sense. And the problem is they've got to follow us after that. So we never headline. We'd always play first or second, and then it's like, follow that.
Great move. Yeah, and you can get to the bar early, get packed up,
Yeah, excellent, yeah, back to bed amid cocoa, yeah. The single is called Goodbye Happiness, and it's the theme tune to an internet series called Blood and Bone China.
We're Birthrights on the People's Voice.tv.
Welcome back to Windows on the World this Sunday, and to prove the show is absolutely live, we've got a breaking news story. We're joined by Ken O'Keefe, whose Middle East show is on later today. And Ken's got some very important news, a story that reveals yet again how the authorities seek to suppress and silence people with controversial views. And this one involves the people's voice. The American researcher Christopher Berlin flew to London from Sweden yesterday to appear live on Ken O'Keefe's Middle East show. But he was stopped at the airport by immigration officials and held for many hours before being deported from the country. Ken is with me to give us the background on what happens. Ken, welcome.
Well, it's lovely to be here, thank you, and a fantastic, important subject. Yeah, Christopher Berlin is one of the foremost researchers in 9/11, and he goes beyond the obvious. He goes into the deep details of the fingerprints of who's responsible for this event. And back in 2006, 2007, Christopher found himself coming home with his wife and 2 kids, and he had some people who were hanging around his house for a couple of days, and he ended up calling 911 as a means to try and get these people removed. He was already a target, of course, because of his 9/11 truth stance. Anyway, after calling 911, these thugs in fatigues came up to him and his family and started to try and intimidate him. One thing led to another. They tasered him, put him on the ground, took him to jail, had about 12 riot gear placed, police waiting for him. It was clearly intimidation. They ended up charging him with assault and resisting arrest. And that's when Christopher left the United States. He literally fled and went to Sweden. So the UK is using these very dubious and blatantly political bogus charges back from the United States to prevent him from coming on air today with me to discuss the truth about 9/11.
Well, this just goes to show that we're getting the truth out there, doesn't it, Ken?
Yeah, it's for me, to be honest with you, I've really reached a point where I'm almost happy that they keep coming harder and harder, because as they do this, more and more people are forced with the option of remaining ignorant, like an ostrich with their heads buried in the sand, or facing the truth, because at the end of the day, no matter how comfortable you might be, your children have no future. And I don't understand how we as parents can continue like this. How can we look ourselves in the mirror and have any respect when we're giving our future no future at all?
This is what we've got to realise. We have got nothing to lose now. This is getting worse and worse and worse, and they're coming after everything.
They really are, yeah. I mean, as we see from the story today, you don't have to have done anything wrong. And that's part of why I'm actually, again, kind of happy, with the whole NSA thing, because for years and years and years, I've had no privacy. Every phone call, everything I do, every movement I make is monitored. And I'm not a bad man, I'm a good man, and that's why I'm being punished. This world is flipped upside down, where the corrupt and the pedophiles get rewarded with positions of public trust, and those with honor and integrity are punished, literally like this man, Christopher Berlin, being deported from this country because he's an honest, good family man who tells the truth about 9/11.
And you have a very vested interest in saying that, because you were a US Marine, weren't you?
Well, yeah, indeed. I'm partly responsible for the actions of my birth nation, and I'm doing the best I can as I've awakened up a little bit to try and make amends for my mistakes. And I think that's part of the solution, is we need to, as people, take responsibility. The governments that we live in... I didn't mean
you personally had a vested interest. I meant you had an interest in the whole of this conspiracy because of what you've been through.
Well, of course, as like I said, we have to take responsibility for the actions of our government. Let's put it this way. My perspective is this. If we are happy to say, well, it's not my fault, it's the government, they're corrupt, this, that, and the other. Well, okay, who pays taxes to that government? Who sits by and allows that government to do what it does? Will that government change on its own, or do we have to take responsibility for these governments in order to reverse their actions, actually honor our integrity and our will, and actually do what's in the best interest of all of us, not just us in this country, but for the rest of the world? And unless we're willing to take that responsibility, nothing will change. So the world that we live in is a reflection of our inactivity and our lack of will and courage. But I see more and more people waking up, and in that sense, I'm very optimistic.
Yeah, well, it's like David said about streetwise spirituality. That's what we need. We need to be coming from the right place, but really going in hard against these people now, and fighting back with mentally fighting back. That's the thing, because the fear factor is what's driving the state against us, basically.
Absolutely, yeah. Fear is a paralyzing thing, and this is why the governments and the powers that be fear those that don't have fear, and they get you sucked into the material world. You get afraid that you lose your freedom, that you'll lose your material wealth. And these are all addictions purposely thrust upon us because they know they can control us. When you lose the fear of loss of freedom, loss of material wealth, or even loss of life, When you lose that fear, you cannot be controlled. And there are a lot of people who are starting to understand the sort of spiritual dimension to being a human being. And it's not just the flesh and blood. There's more to it than that. And ultimately, I see the powers that be. I have to chuckle, quite frankly, because for all their power and all their might and all their resources, their money, everything they've got, they're cowards and they're afraid of us deeply. And they can see that we're waking up. And they have nothing they can do other than instigate a third world war, which they're trying to do.
Absolutely.
And so far, they have fallen flat on their face because people are sick and tired of it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic. I don't care what they do. We'll turn a negative into a positive every time. And no matter what they do, they cannot stop the truth from being known.
Absolutely, Ken. You're a shining light and an example to everybody. Thanks for coming on. And that's just, ladies and gentlemen, that just goes to show that this is live, ladies and gentlemen. Ken O'Keefe, we'll see him later on.
Thank you, my brother.
All the best, Ken. Yeah. So the thing is, what we have to do is stand together. We have to stand together, everybody. And you can help the People's Voice by donating. We need your donations. And you can phone in. It's 0203 714 2700. So getting back to our debate now. So, Morris. Yeah. So, solutions. Final part of the show. We've talked a little bit about solutions. In Nasrin's case, in Nasrin's case, what would you suggest here?
Same as what I've suggested before. What I would do, obviously, he's paid off his arrears. He's also paid 3 months in advance. Obviously, they said there's a clause in the.
Sorry. I'm Nasrin.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, right, you're getting wrong.
I was going to say, but I thought, no, carry
We're
on.
going to be sat next to her all morning.
It's fine.
Yeah. We're going to go to a caller anyway, so we'll come back to that.
Okay.
We've got Steve from Tottenham.
Steve
from Tottenham, are you there?
Hi, how are you?
All right, hello, Steve.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Mark, I'm Steve, the mate of Ambush, the guy you had on earlier on.
I recognise your voice, Steve.
Hi, how are you?
We're all good this morning.
I'm telling you what happened on that day of the eviction. Basically, I'm proof of the pudding that the police are completely corrupt. Corrupt to the point where, you know, I can't even call them police anymore. I mean, that day, they came to the property without a warrant of possession. I asked to see it. They wouldn't show me it. The problem is that they walked to the property without even knocking on the door. They basically smashed the door in. When I approached the window and asked them, you know, hold on, I'm coming to open the door. The corruption was that I even heard the police officer from the CCTV here turn around and say, I don't give a damn, I'm still going to bash the door in. Now,
sorry, just run that by us again. Who actually said that?
The police officer.
The police officer said he was going to bash the door in.
Yeah,
so we've actually got them on video now. Sorry, Steve. We've got them on video smashing the door in. And we've also got the police press office saying that the police would never smash the door in under those circumstances. And the second call that we made to them said if they did that, they could be done for criminal damage. So you can now go after those police individually for criminal damage.
I've been to... I've been to the police station. I've tried to put in complaints and blah blah blah.
You have to take them to court, Steve.
I tried to do it the official way, which is the way they want you to do it. And basically, I had a steel door in front of me because they would not open it up to let me make that complaint.
No, they won't. You have to go to the court.
Yep. So that's my next step. I mean,
this is an interesting one. Just hang on a minute, Steve. So how do we go about getting the names of those officers? Because if you go to the police station, they're very reluctant to give you the names, aren't they?
Yep. I have the name of the arresting police officer, which is Mr.
No, don't say him on air.
Okay.
Yeah. You can pursue. You have to pursue that
I also
yourself,
had the evidence of the interview that I had when I refusely asked for the warrant of possession, and the police officer turned around and said, "Oh, I showed you it." I said, "That wasn't a warrant of possession. Can I please have the warrant of possession, please? Can you please show me it?" And he said he wouldn't show me it again. He wouldn't show me it. He didn't have it. And then eventually I got him to agree that if no warrant was shown, then it means there wasn't a warrant. And he turned around and said, "Yep, I agree with you." So I have this all on tape. I mean, I've got all the evidence. And I want to basically put it on air and let everyone hear what the corruption, the corruption.
You need to get that out there, Steve. And these police need to be brought to account. I mean, do they really think this is not going to happen to them?
Yep.
Do they really think that over the next couple of years that their doors aren't going to get smashed in? Do they really think that they're going to have a pension? They better wake up.
Yeah, they have to. I mean, I'm under a charge now at the moment of trespass.
Trespassing in your own property. Yeah. It's like Nasrin getting arrested for breach of the peace in a lounge, you know. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So I mean, that's the case. I mean, I just can't believe the corruption. It's a big, it's huge. I've got no respect for the police no more.
Well, I know that you've told me you're routinely stopped by them as well, which doesn't help. I mean, every time I speak to you, you've been stopped by the police.
Well, yeah, the last one the other day was about a week ago. I turned around and they pulled me over. I wound down my window, and they said to me, "Can you get out of the vehicle?" And I said, "No, but I can speak to you through the window." And they said to me, "Well, if you don't open the window, we're going to smash the door. If you don't open the door, we're going to smash the window." And I said, "Well, you tell me under the Traffic Act where that."
Yeah, where is that in the Road Traffic Act?
Yeah, where is that in the Road Traffic Act?
All the Road Traffic Act states is that you have to stop for an officer when requested. Doesn't mean they can smash your window to get you out.
And they pulled out the baton and they went to smash the window. Anyway, by the time they did, I pulled down the window and I got out of the vehicle because I actually had nothing to hide. And I said to him, "Well, will you tell me in the Road Traffic Act where it states I have to get out of the vehicle?" And he turned around to me and said, "Well, do me a favour. The website you're getting the information from, can you go to another website because the information you're getting is incorrect?"
Steve, we've got to wrap up now. This has flown over today. What a brilliant show. We're going to pursue these matters on and on and on the People's Voice because all this stuff needs to get out into the public, and that's what we're doing our best to do here at the People's Voice. Thanks for calling, Steve.
I'll pass over the tape.
And in summing up, Morris, Hez.
Also, there was a pre-arranged meeting before my eviction. Also, when they did attend to evict, we asked the bailiffs for the warrant. They're very reluctant in showing the warrant. And when you want to look at it and analyse it, they don't want you to look at it. You know, and these are pointers that I'd like to raise because they're meant to be transparent, and obviously they're not transparent in what they're doing.
That's right. Absolutely, Hez. That's a really good point. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. This has been Windows on the World. We're watching those, watching you, watching the People's Voice. I'm going to be back tomorrow because I now have a day job. And I'll see you between 5 and 7 p.m. tomorrow night. Thank you for watching.
Oh, good, I'm glad.